What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. My name is Brian Funk, and this is a show where we talk about all things making music. And today I have on the show Matty Harris, who is a music producer, mixing and mastering engineer, drummer. He's done work for a lot of people you've heard of, A$AP Rocky, Logic, Lil Yachty. He worked on Stronger by Kelly Clarkson, which I think we all know. He's got his site, mixandmastermysong.com, where he can mix your tracks, actually. And the YouTube channel as well. A lot of cool stuff. A great place to learn and a great resource. So I'm really excited to talk to him. So let's welcome him to the show. What's up, Matty?
Hey, man. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So you're beaming in from your studio in Los Angeles?
Yeah, this is my studio here in Los Angeles. Yeah. It's actually built into my house. So
cool.
Even though it looks like I'm on some off-site place, I tore the garage apart and built the studio into it. Because just, cost of living out here is expensive. So now I just built a really nice room in my studio. It sounds perfect in here. And yeah, I just wake up, put my sweats on and go to work.
That is cool. Yeah. That's a kind of like nice, best of both worlds thing where you are still kind of home, but you also kind of leave, I guess, to go to the garage, right? Yeah,
there's pros and cons to it. So I grew up in commercial facilities and always having a studio away from home. Like I had little like home studios and stuff, but like, a full room I could really feel confident mixing in. And I do kind of miss the camaraderie of it, like going to the studio and people being around. I find myself just alone a lot of days, just sitting here in the studio. But when a client needs to edit on a Saturday and, I can come in here and in 10 minutes send it to them. And so it makes life a lot easier, especially nowadays where everybody wants it now.
Right.
So like, I'll be in the studio in 2 days. And, people don't want to hear that anymore. So it is nice in that respect.
Yeah, I'm going
to cost everything, just such is life.
I'm going to upload my track this afternoon. Can you master it for me?
yeah, exactly. Stuff like that.
That's nice. That's cool. So you got like a situation that works out for you.
Yep.
Yeah, so you're doing a lot of really cool work online. I think stuff that's going to be really helpful to a lot of people. And I kind of want to just maybe ask you like how you got into this. One thing that really caught my eye is you were playing drums way back as a kid, and I saw you had the award of the best drummer in New England.
Right, yeah.
How does that award get? How do you earn that?
It's a high school award, so it was the best drummer in New England. Like, I was in the jazz band and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was. They had all state and all that. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the music stuff when you're in high school, but it was like all state jazz and all that stuff. So I played drums. I grew up I knew what my passion was at like 10, 11 years old. Wanted to be a musician. At the time I wanted to be a rock drummer, and stuff like that. But, I started playing jazz, found a love for jazz through a mentor and teacher, and started, touring with like blues bands and stuff at 14, playing little shitty bars. And then, played jazz in the high school and with my teacher at times, and just kept progressing, wanted to be a drummer, whatever was going to be in my life. And then, got accepted to Berklee School of Music in Boston and went there. And through that course, around 16, 17, I got really into hip hop music, was really starting to get, moving and becoming more of a mainstream thing. And so I really got into that and was interested in learning how to make beats and, make tracks and stuff, and got interested in recording. So I ended up going into the music production engineering program at Berklee and started interning at studios while I was still at school.
Nice.
And then eventually it worked out perfect because by the time I graduated, I'd been interning long enough that I actually got a job working in the studio, even though I was a horrible engineer. At the time, I learned quick that way. So
what do you think it was then? If you were a horrible engineer, was it like the work ethic or the
No, well, what it was is it was a different time. So, I'm 40 years old now. So when I started working in the studios, like the reason I got a job was because I picked up what they called an Audio Media 3 card, which was the first Pro Tools like home studio card you could use. and I learned Pro Tools. And that's the only reason I actually really got a job, is because I was one of the guys that knew computers, you know.
Yeah.
They were still majority recording to tape or ADATs, and I don't know if anyone even knows what that is, but it's basically VCR tapes that recorded 8 tracks of audio, digital audio. So there was ADATs and tape, and then everybody made beats with a MPC, MPC 2000 or 3000 at the time. So in order for you to record the MPC tracks onto tape or Pro Tools, you literally had to run like 2 computers and SMPTE, and like it was like a serious job. Like it was really engineering back then, And so trying to learn that stuff, and a lot of time it was on the fly. The owner and the head engineer was at home chilling, and I'm in there just sweating with like 10 rappers in the studio wondering why we can't get this beat laid. You know what I mean? I was really green, and it was a lot to know back then, where it was, nowadays you just have a computer and you record and it's easy. But so it was kind of a different world. But I learned a lot being thrown into the fire like that, and how to get good and how to get fast as an engineer too,
Yeah.
So
yeah, just throw you in. Nice.
Yeah, that's basically what they did, So
yeah, I have a little history with the ADATs. First thing I ever bought on eBay was a pair of ADATs with a buddy of mine. We got the 2 blackface ADATs.
Oh, God, I hate those things.
Yeah, but we felt like we were like state of the art.
Oh yeah, it was at the time too,
Yeah, we probably got them a little bit after they had their heyday. We probably got them in like 99.
Yeah.
Maybe 2000. I think it's more like 99. And man, it was so fun. But you're right, like all the like troubles that would come on because we were syncing these machines together.
Yeah, they never would sync in time. Then you'd hit rewind, and they're all going.
Yeah,
it was a funny story. I don't know if anyone heard of or remembers. I mean, he's still a great rapper. A rapper named Cormega. Mm-hmm. He was a big New York rapper at the time, and he came to Boston and to record, and he had ADATs, and there was 3 ADATs. So like you had 3 ADATs syncing together, which if you ever used ADATs, that's a nightmare. And then he punched vocals a lot, and punching on ADATs is just hell on earth. And like I was still new and hadn't like really gotten the pre-roll, post-roll buttons down on the ADAT machine. And I was like erasing tracks and like just messing up left and right. And this guy was hating me. And I was just like, I never want to use ADATs again after that session.
I wound up selling my blackface, VHS ADAT, and getting an ADAT HD24 by Alesis.
Oh yeah, I remember those. We had kind of moved on to Pro Tools by the time I think those came out. I was like, I'm done with those things.
Yeah, that was like kind of, I guess, like the last hurrah of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it did have like copy and paste and the punch in with the clock somehow, and I have notebooks full of these calculations where I'd like try to make loops, and I'd figure it out like, okay, this loop is like this long in seconds. And then I'd like copy and paste and add them up. And it was, and again, at the time, it was like, I can't believe I can do this.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, at the time it was a revolution,
Yeah. But then Pro Tools came along, and I was like, oh, wow, what am I doing here?
Yeah. There's no turning back after that stuff came out.
Nice. So I think it's a good background though, actually, just to know what it was like.
Yeah, totally. Like I'm super grateful that I kind of grew up in the transition time of where like everyone kind of left the studios and went recording at home and the computers took over. But I'm so grateful that I went through that period to learn how to, run a tape machine and how to clean a tape machine and like what I kind of consider real engineering stuff. I'm grateful that I lived through it and got to be at the tail end, moving into the better era, as I call it. But but yeah, exactly. But yeah, it was a great experience to work like that, Yeah,
I think it gives you like an appreciation for some of the tools, and even nice to have that like real world comparison when you open up a DAW and just kind of understand.
It's a fun story to tell. Like I have a lot of clients who are young, maybe like 19, 20 years old. And I'll be like, they'll be in the studio. I'll be telling them the story of having to like drop a beat where I had to sync like 2 computers and SMPTE and all this stuff. And their eyes are just like, are you kidding me? Like, how does that work? It's crazy.
That is funny. I was explaining beepers. I teach high school English as like a grown-up job, and so I'm about the same age as you. So I'm on the cusp of like technology. The internet happened when I was in school and all that. So I was explaining to the kids beepers, and how like advanced those were when your friend got a beeper.
Yeah. No, I know, it's crazy. It's like so crazy how much things have changed since we were kids.
You memorized each other's phone numbers? Like, how would they know who beeped you?
Yeah. I mean, I have an 8-year-old, and I was telling him how, like, if you used to have to call somebody on a phone, and it was attached to the wall, and if they weren't like at the other end, then like you didn't talk to them, and they're like, "What?" Like,
yeah. and you would maybe have to speak to their parents first.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a funny, different world now.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So, when did you start doing the online stuff, and like, how'd you get to that transition?
So, I mean, long story is, or maybe I'll try to shorten it up.
We got time.
I stayed in Boston, and I was just recording and running a couple different studios there. And I was happy to live in Boston and be there for the rest of my life. And, what ended up happening was this kid named Sammy Adams came to the studio and wanted to record an album. We started working on it, and I helped him produce it and mixed it. And he had one song. And so this was 10 years ago. And so like the word viral wasn't really used yet. Things didn't really, like, no one knew viral, but he had a video of this song. Yeah. He had a video called "I Hate College," which was like a Asher Roth remix, and I think it's Asher Roth. And then it kind of went viral, so to speak. And then his album came out and it went #1 on iTunes. It was like the first independent record to go #1 on iTunes. Wow. And so, of course, when that happened, all the record labels went crazy and started calling, and they shipped us all out to LA, and we got to like go to the best studio in the world, which for me was just like, oh my God, I've made it kind of moment, And, we're meeting with like the top, like Clive Davis's son and all this crazy stuff. And so through that, cause I was producing and mixing and engineering at the time. Through that, I met a manager, and they said to come out to LA and, I could start working. And so I came out here and moved out to LA and signed a little bit of a publishing deal. And then, I started working on tracks. And so like the Kelly Clarkson record, which is a crazy story, was they had the record and they couldn't get it placed. So my manager asked me to like reproduce the music and see if we could make it like more hip and stuff. So I did it. And then, it got placed and became that record. But they changed it kind of again for more of a rock feel than it is now. I kind of made it like a Lady Gaga version, you know what I mean? So, we got the record placed. The writers decided that they'd already written the song and didn't need to pay me anything. So I actually got paid zilch for that record, which was cool. I did get shouted out in Songwriter magazine, which was nice. But yeah, I was kind of it was my first welcome to LA, experience. But yeah, from there, I started producing some other groups and working with like this artist Cam Meekins, who we got signed to Atlantic. I worked with this other artist named Kelly, who got signed to RCA, and was really just doing the producer thing more than the mixing and mastering thing. But I kind of missed mixing, and then I kind of got tired of writing songs every day. So like, I don't know how many people know, but like the way it works out here in LA is you get together every day with a singer and, what they call a top liner, which is a singer and writer, and the music guy, or maybe they're the both, it doesn't matter, but you get together, you write a song, and then you just start sending songs to the A&Rs or managers, trying to get them placed for, the Rihanna record or the Katy Perry record or whoever is looking for songs. So I did that for like 2 or 3 years. And then it was just such a grind for me. It was like, I was a good producer, or I am a good producer, but I didn't feel like I was the best producer. And, it's tough. Like you get 1 or 2 records a year placed. And it's like, to me, it was just like, man, this is a hard grind to make a living on, all the time, Yeah. So I also, kind of missed mixing and recording and stuff. And I did notice that everyone was moving to home to record at home. And there weren't, the studios were closing and all this crazy stuff was going on. I was like, yeah, but all these people are going to record at home, but they don't know anything about mixing or how to make their song sound good. I'm like, I'm sure there's a million kids in Idaho who have a little home studio, but have no studio close to them to get their song professionally mixed, at a studio in LA or whatever. So on a whim, I was like, I'm going to start this company and see if it even works, and I did it. And, I started hustling and learning how to, build websites and do SEO stuff. And I started doing YouTube videos to like kind of get the word out and also like kind of give back at the same time. And eventually people started actually buying mixes, and now it's gone to, a full-time company and busy as heck and life is good. And it's great because I really dig working with independent artists more than I kind of like working in the major label world. And, I can chill and I don't have to work like till 5 a.m. every night. I can just like I kind of mix 9 to 5 now, and get to spend time with friends and family after. So, it's a pretty good life I've carved out, and I'm glad it worked out. And now I'm kind of pushing to start helping people more because, I know a lot of studios are closed, and that whole like mentoring learning thing is kind of done in that world. But I find if I can do these videos and stuff like that, it can help, give what was given to me in a way. So.
Yeah. Like you said, like you worked as an intern for so long and there was places to work and
right. Yeah.
A lot of my friends went to music school for engineering, mixing, producing, whatever. I kind of just kept up on my own, and thankfully YouTube came along and helped a lot with that. But they were able to get internships, and now I look around, I'm like, well, that place is gone. This place you worked at is gone. Yeah. Where are people going for that kind of experience? And like you said, like there's so many people with like their equipment, their computer, their laptop, whatever, but where are they getting that kind of like mentorship?
Yeah, YouTube is the answer now, and there's also like Mix with the Masters, which is an amazing platform that I subscribe to and learn from. There's so many places to learn from on the internet now, which is like, I don't know if it's better or worse than actually sitting in the studio. Sitting in the studio, you had to sit there for hours before you might catch like a nugget of information. Now you can just Google, hey, I want to do this and learn how to do it. So, just like anything, it was life changes, things change, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. I still have interns come to my studio from the audio schools here in LA. And, cool. It's good, man. They get to learn something and they help me out a bit. I still try to, and, every once in a while I'll sit down with them with one of their songs and we'll like go through the mix. So I try to give back still that way too. Cause I like teaching too, man. I like showing like people how to do things. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great attitude. Cause, and also it seems like the more you give, the more you get back anyway.
100%. Yeah.
I'm sure like, some of your tutorials are bringing people to your website and they're like, oh, this guy knows how to do this. So let's have him mix my track or master.
Yeah. I learned that a while ago. Like, just like give it all. And I swear, and it all will come back. And it really does. You know what I mean? Like I'll give my biggest like secrets or whatever on YouTube. Cause I know that like you can like learn how to do it, but like you won't be able to do it as good as me because I've done it for, 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
It's like I always tell, like a lot of people are like, man, I'm watching all these tutorials and trying to learn, but my mixes just sound like butt still, I'm like, you got to look at it like this. Like if you went and watched a tutorial on how to change your engine in your car, would you be able to go to your car and like pull the engine out right after you watch the video? Like, heck no. Like chances are like something's going to go wrong. Some tube's going to break and it will throw off anything that tutorial taught you,
Yeah.
So like, it's just like, I always tell people it's just hours and repetition to get good at mixing or get good at mastering or anything, learn how to play the piano, like it just takes time, So that's why I think if you just completely give everything, you're going to help people out, but you're also going to get a lot of like people like, or they do give up on mixing and just be like, forget it. Matty, will you just mix this song for me? Cause I can't listen to it anymore, So it works out in both ways. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, because I know that always happens to me. I try to fix something from YouTube, and then it's like, oh well, wait, this didn't happen to him.
Yeah, exactly.
She didn't have that go wrong. Like, what happened? Now what?
Yeah, well, it's like I tell people, like every kick drum's different, right? and then every bass is different, and the way every kick and bass interact is really different.
Yeah.
So like, there's no tutorial to teach you, like, you know, only like having mixed like thousands of songs. Do you know, oh yeah, I remember like 2 years ago when that kick was doing that and the bass did that. So I fit the, you know, switched the phase and like, you know, did whatever trick that you learned along the way, you know? So it's just like, to me, it's like picking up nuggets slowly but surely and, you know, storing in that information and then being able to pull it out when you need it on a certain song. You know?
I run into like that once in a while too. Someone might ask me like, you know, what frequencies do I cut on the vocals, or what do I boost on the vocals? And it's like, well, that really depends. Like, and I do get like a little like, sometimes you'll see, it happens, I guess, with beginners sometimes, you know, where they'll think, oh, whenever you do a vocal, you have to do this. But everything is different every single time. So it's like, well, it's not really something I can't give you like the answer key here. Yeah. It's more conceptual than that. You know? Yeah. And it's now even more so because everyone is recording at home. So like now you're dealing with like bad room noise and like all kinds of crazy stuff. So it even gets deeper with like what to EQ. It depends, you know, where the buildup is. Yeah, for sure. What are your feelings about like mixing and at home? And for instance, I mean, obviously like having like, you know, a place like yours, it looks very well planned out and put together professionally. But are you seeing like people able to put together like good mixes, or is there?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like some people can, some people can't. I mean, I think it just goes to experience. Like, I think you can definitely get a professional mix at your house if you know kind of what you're doing, you know? I mean, sometimes I tell people, I say, use like, if your room's not treated well, like use smaller speakers or like not huge speakers and try to mix low, because the lower you mix, the less the room affects the sound. Right. So if you mix somewhat low and then you can also get in the Fletcher-Munson curve, which can, you know, I can't remember how it goes, but like the bass is louder at low levels or maybe it's vice versa. But there is that issue. But, you know, try to mix at moderate levels or lower levels, and then it kind of takes the room out of the equation a little bit, you know? And then I also tell people, like, there's this program called SonarWorks that is like $300, and it comes with a microphone, and it can not fixes, but it levels out the EQ problems in your room. And I actually used to use it before I had my room fully done in here, and it works really well.
You know, I've seen that, and I've kind of wondered about it. Like, what is it fixing exactly? Like, is there like some kind of post-processing?
It's basically like an EQ that you put on your master channel, right?
Yeah.
Like what it will do is it like you get a microphone with it, and you have to, it does these like woo 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 sounds, and you have to test it, and there's like you just move your microphone 25 places, and it actually tells you where to place it, and you see it on the screen as you're doing it. So with speakers, it kind of knows where you are, which is cool. And then once it gets that, it does some sort of crazy calculation, and it has the like where buildups might be in your room. Like say your room has a big boost in the low end, which is not odd, or like some node, they call it, in the middle, where like, you know, for some reason 100 hertz goes down in the room, like there's a big like gap in 100 hertz, and so it will re-EQ that so that it sounds more even, and it actually works pretty well. You know, my room, even after it was designed, still had a little bit of a low mid issue. I actually now have this thing called Trinov, which is like a $5,000 room EQ processor, which, you know, I don't recommend for anyone unless you're like really professionally mixing. But you know, that takes care of like the EQ issues I still had after I had the room built, because even though my room's professionally built and designed, size is a big deal. So I only had so much size in this room, so I still had a little bit of bass issues, because with bass it takes up so much energy. You got to have a really big room in order to like fully be able to handle it. So I only had so much room to deal with, so that the extra EQ of the room helps. Just my room's like really, really flat. Like what I hear in here, it comes out just the same outside.
Right. Yeah, because the bass, the waveform literally needs physical space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, sometimes you can almost hear like in certain. I was listening actually just to the thunder last night or the night before, and I was noticing how you hear the crack, the higher frequencies first, and then the rumble arries.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like a latency almost or something.
Yeah. I never thought of it like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I know, I guess like at certain like venues, they have that issue where I think like for a lot of subwoofers, you can, if it's a problem, it's invert the phase, you can almost fix it. But yeah, I don't know. That's maybe like more than typical home studio guy.
Yeah, that's like going way down the road.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend the Sonar Works for guys at home.
Mm-hmm.
It made a difference. I mean, because before I had this room built, I was just in a freaking garage, like doing some mixes when I wasn't in my studio up in Hollywood before I fully moved down here, and it really helped. It really helped. Well,
that's like such a common thing for me, for people. You always hear like it sounds great in your room, and then you take it somewhere else, and you're like, well, what the hell happened to my mix? You're excited to
that's
show
the problem.
someone.
Like the first issue is usually bass. Like you're in a little square bedroom, it just can't handle bass, especially if you're blasting it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I say like mix low and try the Sonar Works, and I think it would help a lot of people clean that up. You can actually kind of hear properly, because a lot of times what's happening is it sounds great in one room, but it's not going to sound good out in the car, because if you have a whole bunch of bass buildup, and the bass sounds great, but then you go out in the car, but that bass buildup's no longer there. So now you're like, wow, where'd all the low end go in my mix? Or a lot of times the opposite is like I had way too much low end, and so
compensating.
Yeah. So it's always low end issues people have.
Yeah.
If their mix is muddy, they have too much low end. If their mix is too bright, there's not enough low end, and it's really usually that's where the problems arise.
Yeah, I always recommend, and I try myself, I listen on so many, I know where I am right now is probably a nightmare to any proper engineer, but I always try to listen in so many different places, and it's almost like I take the balance, it might sound a little worse where I sit right now, but it sounds better there on average in other places.
Yeah.
You make these weird like mental notes that.
Yeah, of course. And I think too, just like listening to other people's music in your mixing place can be super helpful too. Because then you could be in the worst room ever, but if you learn those speakers and you learn what that room does and doesn't do, then you can translate a lot better. I had one of the studios I worked in Boston had like a weird low end issue. And I just learned where that issue was, and I started mixing with that in mind,
Right.
So you can work around a bad room, but you just got to be smart about it and really understand what you're doing,
Yeah. Do you use reference tracks much when you mix?
Yeah. Well, so this kind of brings back to the whole like home studio revolution. Is a lot of people will send me a song that they've been trying to mix, or they have like a rough mix or all their ideas on. And so I always ask for the last mix you listen to of your song, because I want to hear your ideas. I want to hear how you've been hearing it, because whether you know it or not, you like that mix somewhat, So I always ask for the rough mix so that I can make sure I'm either where they left off, or I can get to where they left off and then make it better from there. And then I do listen to reference mixes. When I get done, usually towards the time when I'm like mastering and like tweaking the mix and stuff, I'll pull up, a record that kind of sounds the same or in the same genre and just start A/B. And I have, I don't know if I can show it. I have an Avocet over here. Is that showing that? Yeah. And so it has 3 digital outputs. So I got a DAW output, my reference mix output, which is the rough mix, and then my iTunes or Apple Music or whatever it is button. So I can switch really quick and listen to like You know, the mix I'm working on, then the Apple Music, then the mix I'm working on, and the reference mix. And that makes it like super easy for me able to just make sure I'm in the right, you know, going the right direction. So yeah, I think reference mixes are good. Some people don't like mixing with reference mixes, but I think you know, some days you're off or something. You get a reference mix like, whoa, my vocals are way too dark. Like I always mix. I like warm, like my favorite sounds are 70s records. So like I like really warm, like fat sounding records, right? But music now isn't like that so much. Like it's super bright and stuff. So like I always like that's half the reason I'll use a reference mix, because I know my mixes are going to be warm and like dark. And so I always have to like some days I'll be on point, but some days I'll be like in my own like Matty dark world. And I'll be like, I'll put the reference mix on, and it's like, oh my God, I'm so dark. So I brighten everything up and push things forward a bit, and then it gets back on track. So yeah. I think that's a key too, is just like knowing what you like and what the client's going to like, you know?
Yeah. I've definitely done, put on reference tracks and be like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, I'm on a different planet here.
Yeah.
Cause it's easy to just get used to it too. Like you just your ear adjusts so much. Hearing's weird like that. And like you mentioned, like the Fletcher Munson curve, just understanding like what our ears are kind of meant to hear and perceive as it's a lot of, I guess, like physics and even like evolution plays into it.
Yeah. No, it can go deep.
Like I read like one of the reasons we really like are sensitive to like kind of like mid-rangey sounds, 1K-ish or whatever, is because that's around the sound of like twigs breaking. So like a predator coming and like, you know, like that particular frequency, we like kind of, So that's like danger. Yeah,
that's interesting. I always heard it was, you know, because that's where the voice is. I mean, that's part of it too, I think, you know, and so we hear that area, this frequency, like the 2 to 8K or whatever it is, range the most, because that's where we're all, you know, listening for.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's not a lot of reason for us to hear. I guess that's why we can't hear above it or super low.
Yeah. So
funny. You can really like you can really like study and analyze it to death, or I guess there's a point where you just gotta go
crazy with it. I think, you know, and I just try to like what does it sound good or not, you know, like that's where I try to be all day.
Yeah, when we were emailing, to just not to totally switch gears, but when we were emailing, one thing you had said like you were thinking about a lot was like whether to do like a single when you release or an EP or a whole album. You know, me and you both grew up on albums. You know, you have like these experiences with like these records, start to finish, this whole story. I mean, this is what I'm noticing, you know, being around like younger kids, teenagers and stuff. They're almost not even listening to entire songs anymore. They're kind of like playing a part and then changing it all the time. And, so I wonder what your thoughts are. You know, what do you think is best for like an artist, say, that's trying to make a name for themselves, get known? Is it better to do those big projects or... I understand what you're saying, and you know that always drives me crazy. I do it now. I can barely get through a song because it's like if you gave the 16-year-old me, you're like, here's this box, and you can listen to any song you ever wanted to listen to right now, I would have lost my mind. I wouldn't know where to start, because there's like, you know, I to get a record, and I lived in like a rural town, I'd have to drive 45 minutes just to pick up a CD, you know. Right. And pay $20.
Pay $20, and so like, you know, I was getting 1 or 2 a day. You know, I'd do like the BMG scam where I'd like, you know, order. Like I still owe them tons of money, I'm sure, but like, but like, you know, like so when you got a record, I think it was more appreciated. You know, you're like, wow, I got this. I'm gonna listen to this thing all the way through. Now it's like you can have any song you want. What do you want? You want hip hop? You want to listen to some jazz record? Like, what do you want? And your brain just scatters. So, you know, the way we listen is so different now. so that's one thing. And the other side of it, especially for new artists, is like, everyone's so instant now, you know what I mean? Everyone's on Instagram and like all this stuff. And it's like, you as an artist have to like be able to deliver something on Instagram and on, you know, Facebook or Snap or whatever it is you're going for. And like, an album comes and goes so fast nowadays, you know? So like, if you spend 2 years as an artist and like, here's my album, and then like, you know, for like a couple of days, people might talk about it and then it's on to the next one, you know?
Yeah.
So like, I'm a big, like, I tell every artist I know now, it's all about singles and EPs until you really get going, in my opinion, you know? One of the artists I work with, his name's Cam Meekins. And he's pretty well known. He makes a living off his music now, which is awesome. He's releasing an EP every month this year. Wow. And that's, 3-4 songs every month. And that's been his thing. And it's great because it gives him something to show his fans every week and talk about and do a video for one of them. And it's because now it's different. It's not about like the album. It's about content, which is weird, but it's really what it's about. And so like he has tons of stuff every month to push to his fans and say, hey, listen to this new record, or check out this, or we're releasing it this day, and da-da-da. And so it just gives them things to talk about and ways to keep relevant and current. So, I mean, I love the album concept from my old man perspective, but from my, you got to stay young and understand the culture. I think you really more as a new artist is really EPs and singles are your way to go.
Yeah, I have to agree with you begrudgingly.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I love putting on an album and just immersing into it. But you're right. Like things are so fast these days, and you got to stay on top of it, and you got to keep popping up on the feed.
Yeah. It's kind of sad, but it just is what it is, And it's only sad if you lived through the era we lived where it was albums and stuff. To the new kids, it's like that's the way life is,
Yeah. Well, I think it's the investment. I mean, when I bought an album when I was a kid, I tried to like that album. I was like really rooting for it. Like,
I know.
I remember when things used to grow on you.
I know.
Now it has to hit you, or it's like gone. I feel the same way about like software and gear too. Like, there's like you said, there's so many choices. There's a bazillion plugins. There's all kinds of gear you can get. When I first started, I had a guitar, a microphone, and I got a 4-track, and that was like it.
Yeah,
and that's all I had to use. So I really figured it out. I learned how to use that machine, and now everything, like you said, everything's so available. Like I know I'm guilty of it where I don't get to know a piece of gear as well or a plugin as well because I just want to try the new thing that's coming out.
100%. I mean, if you looked at my plugin list, you'd be disgusted. Like I have like a plugin issue. I should go to like PA or whatever it is. Like I have bad problems, but it just is what it is. I get excited and then, but yeah, I mean, I have probably 15 reverb plugins. You know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous. But it is what it is. Yeah. And but the funny thing is I find when I'm mixing, I'm using the same 10 plugins every day. Like there's like a little group of plugins that I'm always using. And then I have all these other like BS plugins that I bought with, my excitement.
Yeah.
And I actually did a Skype class with a client a few weeks ago, and he pulled up his session and there's all this stuff. He's like, which plugin should I use for this? Which plugin? And I'm like, man, stop. I'm like, pick 2 or 3 plugins that you're going to use and learn those and just use those for the next month, And it goes back to like the guitar thing you're talking about. I think fewer choices become better mixes if you're at home,
Yeah.
Stop worrying about which plugin to use. Just use one EQ, one compressor, and see where you go,
Yeah.
And that's, information I have to tell myself on a daily basis as well.
Oh, I never listen to it, but I say it all the time.
Yeah. But it's true, man. It's like less tools make for better art, I think,
Yeah. Oh, I've confessed to this on this podcast before, but when I first got my computer, I sold my ADATs and everything. Yeah. And I've discovered the world of plugins, and wanted to download them all, and I spent probably like 2 months where I thought I was like, making music. I was becoming like an expert at like cracking software and finding all the dark alleys of the internet to do these like little transactions to get plugins. And I had all this stuff. I mean, criminal, Yeah. But I didn't know how to use anything. And I hadn't made a song in months. And it was at that point where I just said, what am I doing? And I kind of just got rid of everything. And I was like, look what's inside the software I'm using. My DAW already has all this stuff. I don't even know how to use that. And that was such a breakthrough moment for me because I just focused on how to use the software. And like you said, like fewer tools, and I was making more music, and I was learning how to use it. So then a lot of the plugins that I had, I realized I didn't need because I could just chain together, a couple EQs and a chorus and a distortion and have that fancy plugin.
Right. Yeah. No, 100%. And I'm hoping, and I don't know, I feel like this evolution of like the computer world, I feel like all of us might be finally getting to this point where it's like, we don't need all this stuff. You know what I mean? They're feeding us all this stuff, but we don't need all this stuff. And maybe it's just me, we're kind of starting to learn to kind of dial down and get a little bit smaller with all the stuff we need, and so hopefully that can help, people start making better music and not be so crazed with the content and the new and the new and the new,
Yeah, I think that's like the 21st century challenge now is like, what do you do when you have every possibility?
Yeah, no, 100%.
I had to get creative.
I don't even know what to listen to now. Like I'll pull up iTunes and I'm like, or Apple Music. I was on Tidal now, and I don't even know which one to pick. First of all,
right?
I pull it up, and then it's just like there's like 400 songs staring at me, and I'm like, where do I even start?
Yeah.
Half the time I just end up listening to something I listened to when I grew up because I'm like, I can't figure it. I don't want to like go through all this stuff. I'm just gonna pull up my old Tribe Called Quest record or something.
Now you have access to every recorded piece of music in the world, and
it's too much, man. It's crazy.
Fall back to your favorite CD.
Yeah.
I think that's when I do my best work too. Is if I say, okay, today I'm going to just use this one thing or try out this thing. Even if it is something new, just decide like I'm just going to use this.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get diverted, and it's a discipline thing, I guess. And maybe having said that, what are some of your go-tos? What are some of your favorite things to use? Like, do you have? I imagine you must have like certain things out of your 15 reverbs. Like, what is the one you go to?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll run through this like the plugins I use every single day. If that might help.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I use every day. I always have a SSL plugin, like the channel strip. And the one I've been using the most, honestly, I have like 4 SSL channel strips, which is just sad. But the one I use the most lately is the Brainworks one that they released like a year ago or something. I like it because it's got some other features that not the other ones have that I can use. So I use the Brainworks one all the time, or any SSL EQ will work. Fab Filter EQ. The Pro Q3 now they have. I use that every day. That is an amazing EQ. If you need one EQ, just get that one. I like to use the LA2A by UAD as a compressor for vocals. That's my go-to vocal compressor. And those are like the main ones I use for like EQ and compression. I mean, I use other ones for certain things, but just like go-to stuff. Reverbs, that's tough. And it's funny because I don't use that much reverb, but I have some like weird obsession with reverb.
Yeah.
But I love the Valhalla reverbs.
Those keep coming up. I got to check those out.
And those are only $50, man.
Yeah.
They're only $50, which is crazy. And they sound great. So I use the Valhalla ones a lot. I have some UAD ones. I actually just bought 2 new reverbs today, which is but I got some UAD reverbs that I like to use. And those are kind of the main ones that I use for reverb. So and then
using
delays,
like an Apollo or something like that? One of those?
No, I actually have I have 2 UAD Octo cards, which super overkill. Actually, it's not overkill because it works, but they're just, they're not, I don't use their interface. I just use their boxes, which you can load plugins on.
Right.
So I don't use the Apollo or anything like that. But I love their plugins. They're really, really good plugins. So I have a lot of them. And so I use them on the card. And it's good because it takes up like processing power off of your computer as well. So it helps in that respect too.
Yeah, that's definitely a bonus.
Yeah.
I'll have to keep convincing myself that I don't really need that. But,
no, you don't. You really don't. I mean, honestly, I tell like I could work with just those Valhallas and be good, but I don't.
Are you using
just one more quick thing of the plugins?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it too for me is the history of it, right? Uh-huh. So like to be able to use I got the 480, which is a legendary reverb, and then this chamber plugin today. And it's not so much like I need it. It's just like really cool to be able to like use, like this was something that was used on countless records.
Yeah.
I learned how to use it. And so like there's kind of a cool thing with that as well. But whatever.
I think also too for what you're doing, that's like a selling point for people. And if they want a certain sound, you have that to offer.
Yeah. No. I can justify it all day.
Yeah, right. We don't need help with that.
Yeah. I got my excuses.
Yeah, but I hear you on that. Like there is like kind of like almost like a history kind of like appreciation going on there too.
Like the UAD just released the Capitol Chambers reverb. Mm-hmm. And if I study like recording studios, like the history of recording studios. I get into all this stuff, and especially being in LA where so many of these like big records have been recorded. So Capitol Records, which has their own recording studio, has this vocal chamber in there, which is like legendary. You know what I mean? Like Adele's used it on the Adele records. It was all the Frank Sinatra records, and it's just this legendary sound. And no, they would never let anyone go in there to like sample the reverb, so you could use it on like a IR reverb or something. Yeah. It's super sacred. They finally let UAD come in and make it happen, and they did it with like Al Schmidt, who's the main engineer over there, who's recorded everybody, and they got it spot on, and it actually sounds really, really good. But it's cool just to be like, hey, I have Capitol Chambers reverb in my computer now.
Yeah.
Like, it's freaking crazy. So.
I love IR's convolution reverb.
Yeah.
I'll even record them on my phone. Like I'd like clap my hands in a cool room or something, and it's my phone, but it's still like there's a character, and even sometimes I think like the fact that it is like the phone microphone.
That's a great idea. Actually, I'm gonna go start doing it. That just like changed my life. I'm like, I record my own IRs. Like I've never actually even done that.
I have one that I really shouldn't have. I don't know if I should say this, but
you have a Capitol Chambers?
No. For my honeymoon, my wife and I went to Europe, and one of the places we went to was Liverpool. Yeah, I love the Beatles. Like, so we did like the National Trust tour of like their houses, and you're not allowed to take pictures or anything in the houses. It's like you got to be there. So we were in John Lennon's house, and they say in this like kind of like front porch areas where John and Paul used to work out their songs because they loved the acoustic reverb in this little tiny like front porch area, like right, like kind of like a, what do you call it, like a mudroom type of deal.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is cool. So I had my phone. I was just like, told my wife, I was just clap your hands, Yeah. I'm like, just like one or two claps, and recorded that and threw it into the Ableton Live, convolution reverb, and it's like, it's just like, I don't even know if it's a great sounding one really, but it's fun for me, kind of like almost like what you said too, but like it's fun to like use that sound. Oh yeah, that would be totally cool to use. No, I get that 100%. I mean, that's what's cool about it. It brings some sort of soul to the song. That when you're mixing it, that reverb is being used on whatever, and that's special. Yeah, the soul. And sometimes I think like even if the soul's like just in your own head,
if
it motivates you to do things and keeps you excited, I think that comes through.
100%.
Yeah, but don't tell on me, everyone. I want the
No, that's a really cool story, though. Actually, I
National
like
Trust coming after me.
be in jail next week.
Yeah, that's one way to get in, right?
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Worst ways.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I don't think I get a lot of respect amongst the inmates. What are you in for? Well,
Going to the reverb.
you nerd. Well, listen, man, it's been really fun talking to you. Before we go, maybe because maybe we can use this as like a little hype up for your YouTube channel, because I think everyone should check that out. That I think it's just I got it right here. I'll say it the right way. Mix and Master My Song. Is that YouTube / Mix and Master My Song?
Yeah, youtube.com/Mix and Master My Song. So.
Yeah, and you'll see it if you go on mixandmastermysong.com. The links are there, but definitely a cool channel to subscribe to, and lots of great tips. And by the way, I like how to the point you are. Going back to what we were saying about having every option in the world, like if I'm going to watch something on YouTube, as soon as it's more than like a few minutes, I start being like, oh, I don't know if I have time for this 9-minute, 20-minute video, I need it to be like faster. So it's like not a lot of wasted time, which is great. It's like really to the point.
Yeah, a lot of people actually say that. They're like, I like your videos because you just go right to the point.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit there and intro talk you for like 3 minutes. Like, it's just no,
One of my favorite gags is on Family Guy. If you ever watch Family Guy, whenever they go on the internet to get a tutorial, they got this guy. He's like, hey, man, what's up? It's Corey, and you're watching Corey's World. Hey, please don't forget to subscribe. It's like, he spends the whole video just telling you to subscribe. But
it's crazy.
It's a funny little gag. But what would best practices, tips for people that are doing their own mixing? Anything you like to, general advice? I
think we went over quite a few. We
definitely did. Yeah.
Listen low in a room like that. That's one. I mean, just making sure you're listening right. And I think using less plugins is super helpful too. Just especially if you're starting out. I think one of the other things too is with all these tutorials is like, it's great to learn and watch them, but maybe just turning the internet off and just mixing is probably going to suit you better. And just, and the number one thing I tell people is just to trust your ears, like trust what you're listening to. You know what I mean? Like take all the technical, cause like, especially for mixing, like one of my favorite mixers, Manny Marroquin, he talks about the left and the right brain all the time. And with a mixing, as a mixer, or when you're mixing, you have to use both sides at the same time, which is, in theory, scientific wise, is really hard.
That's like the creative side and the
the technical side, right? So a lot of times when people, especially younger mixers, are mixing, they get so involved in the technical side, and I'm guilty of this sometimes too. I'm so technical side that I'm like, wait, I haven't actually really even listened to what I'm mixing in a long time. I'm so concerned with this compressor setting,
Yeah.
And to be able to pull away from all that stuff, don't worry about, like I always say, don't worry about all that stuff. Sit back. Do I like the way this sounds or not? Just keep asking yourself that question. Do I like the way this sounds or not? Or what do I not like? What do I not like? Is the kick too loud? Okay, the kick's too loud. Just turn it down. You don't need to compress anything yet. Turn the kick down. Awesome. What's bugging me now? And it's like, just listen as a listener. That's the hardest thing to do when mixing is pull away and be the listener and just listen to the song. I know it sounds like super simple, but like it's an art form just doing that,
Yeah. Well, it's such a mental challenge. It's the old, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail problem.
Yeah, totally. 100%. So like, that's the biggest thing, is just to trust your ears. Like, be like, okay, this sounds like crap, or this sounds good. You know what I mean? Like, and just make a decision,
Yeah. I like that idea a lot. Like, there should be a reason why you're putting something on a track. And that reason shouldn't be that you always put a compressor on the drum.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that's half the battle, is knowing what not to do. Like, I just mixed a song, right? And it was a rap song, and it was, tracked out beats with the kick, snare, and the music and all separated, and then the vocals. And I literally put 2 plugins on all the music because it sounded good. It didn't need anything. You know what I mean? I didn't have to do anything. The producer did a great job making the beat, and it sounded good. And I just, I compressed the drums a little bit just so I had some more headroom for mastering, and that was it. And so, knowing when to do that is part of like the experience of it. You know what I mean? And then, I might mix a song next, and I'll have to use every plugin in the book on every single track to get it to sound right. So like, it always depends, but that's why it's like, just trust your ear. I'm like, this beat sounds great. Ego aside, I don't need to go in there and, be Matty the mixer. This sounds great already. Let me just work on these vocals, which didn't sound great, and I had to do some work on, Yeah. So like, I mean, it's just about trusting what you're hearing and maybe not doing things as opposed to having to do something,
That's an interesting point. And it's great that you recognize that, because it must be like, the fact that they're giving you something to mix must, it says to you, I need to fix something. But to have the restraint to say like, I don't know, it's doing.
Well, like their rough mix sounded like it wasn't great, but like all it was, and this is just like a lot of times happen, is like they just had their mix slamming into the master bus. So it was just crushed, like, and so all the low end and everything was just taken out, and just by pulling the stems up and gain staging them correctly, the whole thing opened up and it was fine,
Wow.
So it's a lot of it's just gain staging and levels. And like people think it's like all this crazy stuff, but it's like, no, man, you're just slamming your master bus, and that's why it sounds bad. The beat sounds great. Just turn it down 6 dB,
What do you aim for when you, just one last question for you. What are you aiming for? Because this is so controversial, and now like the rules have changed, and but like as far as like, when, let's say someone's sending you a song to be mastered, what do you want to see in like their master bus, as far as like how loud they have it mixed? And
depend. I mean, so there's a bunch of different ways to gauge it now. So there's LUFS, which is one thing I use. But the gain staging kind of builds from the beginning. So like on my master, so before I master, right? So just when I'm just in mix world, I want to have like usually like 3 to 6 dB of headroom without peaks on the master bus, right? That gives the mastering engineer, if I'm not mastering, it gives him plenty of room. Well, actually, let me backtrack, because I don't really let other people master my mixes. I send them loud, and if they want to fix it, they can. But I usually have that, and then I'll get gain from EQ and limiting and actually clipping to get mixes louder like that. But yeah, I like to start with a good amount of headroom on the master bus. My situation is a little different because I mix out of the box through summing. And with analog, you can get a lot louder than you can in the box.
Yeah.
So it's a little different, but I can push it harder on the analog side, and then by the time it captures back in, it's already pretty dang loud.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So, but there's still a little bit of space there. You need that for.
Yeah, and it depends on what I need to do. Sometimes I can get the mix loud enough and perfect in the analog world, and I just print it. Like I don't put any plugins on the master bus. And then some days it's like, oh, this is going to need some like digital work. Like, so I won't print that loud back into the box, and then I'll use plugins to get it louder. Cause like you can clip the master bus, which is like basically just shaving off transients before limiting. And it will, to me, it sounds better sometimes when you have like a super loud kick drum or something than limiting where it pumps a bit. You just clip it off a bit and it still stays loud, but you have more headroom to get louder with a limiter.
Gotcha.
So you can do that in the analog world, but they also have plugins like Standard Clip, which I use a lot. It's like a $10 plugin, which is crazy. But it's a clipper basically, and it works really well for making things loud in the box.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, we could do a whole nother episode on gain staging, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it is funny like how much of a difference getting that right makes.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
A lot of times, like if I'm recording and something's not right, that's usually the culprit. something along the
yeah.
way is either too loud or not loud enough, or
yeah. Yeah, no, it makes a world of difference. Sure.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks so much. You've been very generous with your thoughts and your time.
Oh man, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is great. I loved it. So we'll send people to
mixandmastermysong.com.
mixandmastermysong.com. And anywhere, any like particular place you like to send people? Is it like YouTube? I know I see you're pretty active on YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram, YouTube, and my website are basically where I'm at. I'm barely on Twitter, and I'm barely on Facebook. So
nice. I'll put all these in the show notes so people can find them there.
Yeah. I can only do 1 or 2 social medias at a time.
Yeah, I think you're probably better off like focusing again. Like, you could spread yourself real thin, or you can be active. And I think what you're doing works really well on YouTube and Instagram. It's something you can see, and I think the kids are moving away from Facebook anyway.
Yeah, Facebook's for the old people.
All their parents are on there. Cool, man. Well, so it's mixandmastermysong.com. Check it out, everybody. There's links in the show notes for you there too. Matty, thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
And thank you everyone for listening. Have yourselves a great day.